Hello, welcome to a new episode of Everything Phil Collins. Today we're talking about, I've been excited to do this, I'm excited to get this in the mail. Today we're talking about the acoustic sound series from Atlantic, audiophile series, the 75th anniversary of Atlantic Records, 75 historic titles, handpicked and supervised by Analog Production CEO Chad Kassem, mastered from the original analog tapes or best available source by top mastering engineers, cut at 45 RPM and pressed on heavyweight 180 gram vinyl. I left the hype stickers on there. This has been opened. One of the cool things about this record is the artwork is really different, really incredible, super high quality. Obviously, you have gatefold, which I think there might be some gatefold versions of the original out there, or at least one. Correct me if I'm wrong. And I believe this is tip on. Can anyone confirm? I believe this is tip on. You can see it's cardboard on the inside, and then this means that this is printed and glued on there, and you can see that's the case with the inside liner notes. One of the things that is disappointing, aside from the logos down here, is there aren't any details on the back about the new pressing, or other than on the hype stickers or on the mastering or anything. And so we don't really know, and same with on the inside. But other than that, this is it's great to have a thick spine. Most Genesis records, especially over the years, they get squished. We don't have a thick spine for things like Abacab or Shapes. I think the records that came in the box in like 2012, 2014, those ones had a pretty decent spine. I mean, the double disc stuff like Calling All Stations and We Can't Dance have a good spine. But yeah, Selling England, really nice to have a thick spine. This is gorgeous. Like, I don't know if you can see how shiny it is. Let's compare it to the original. But like you see, this is kind of, well, that looks shiny too. But this is like, I mean, it's old, right? But this is like super electric, really beautiful. Today on the episode, we're going to play some audio samples. At the risk of getting in trouble by Tony Smith and getting some copyright strikes against my channel, I am going to play clips from this record on YouTube. I ripped it from the vinyl straight to a Zoom recorder in stereo, trying to keep the resolution as high as possible. And then we're going to compare it to two other pressings. This is a pressing I got a couple of years ago, or maybe just last year. This is the clear vinyl. It's a single disc. What's really, really spectacular about these, new 45s from Atlantic Records and Acoustic Analog Productions is that it's on two discs. And so the songs are spread out a little bit more. So they're a little bit, they sound better, less distortion. So very much like the new version, here's the two, you can tell they're different yellow looking. Very much like the new version, there's no information as to like where this was done, who cut the master. I have some theories about this one because you'll notice the sound on this, and then we're going to compare it to the original. This is a Canadian pressing, 1973. It's in pretty good shape. So I played them. I've picked a couple clips. I'm going to show you some of my favorite parts of the record, and some of the parts of the record I think will really highlight the differences. Let's talk about this 75th anniversary pressing. This was announced at the beginning of 2024, I believe, maybe even at the end of 2023. And the idea was that they're taking some of the best records. Is it 75 historic records from Atlantic Records and redoing them. We already have Face Value. I don't personally own it. And Hello, We Must Be Going, which that's one I would like to get my hands on. The Lamb is out and Selling England by the Pound is out. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think that Foxtrot is starting to roll out now. Foxtrot and Abacab and Shapes and is supposed to be rolling out. There's a couple records they're not doing, which is surprising. They're not doing any other of Phil's other than his first two that I know of. And they're also surprisingly not doing Wind and Wuthering. And they're not doing Trespass, which isn't surprising, but they're not doing Wind and Wuthering. And then there were three they're not doing. It's pretty sporadic. They're not doing Invisible Touch. So it's like they're doing like, I think it's Foxtrot, Nursery Crime, Selling England, The Lamb. They're not doing Duke. They're doing Abacab and Shapes. I think that's all. Anyway, after I got this, let me give you my first impressions. I put this on. It sounded great. I have a good setup. I don't have an amazing setup. I don't have a $100,000 audiophile setup. But I have a good, project turntable. I'd like to improve the stylus. Get a better one, but I have a decent amp. and some good speakers. And I really enjoy listening to vinyl in my living room. And I was always a little bit disappointed with how quiet the original was, and it was getting a little bit muddy and noisy for my liking. And so that's why last year I bought the clear version because it's louder. Same with the white version of Duke. It's just louder. You can hear things a little bit better. And so it's like a little bit like a digital sound. It's just a little bit clearer. Anyway, but I was really into this because, like I said, you can spread the tracks onto more sides, and therefore the tracks have more room to breathe. They can be louder, they can have more detail and less distortion on songs like More Fool Me, which I'll show you in a minute. This is probably slowly becoming my favorite Genesis record. I mean, there are other records that I love a lot for different reasons, but like when it comes to no bad songs, 9 absolutely perfect, gorgeous tunes, or 8, sorry. This is the album. So was the one that I decided to pick up on this in this series because, like I said, Hello, I Must Be Going. If I came across that, I would have grabbed it. I think some of those songs, like I Cannot Believe It's True, Through These Walls, It Don't Matter to Me, I think would sound really cool, really, really cool. And that was a record that was pushed onto, in my opinion, was jammed a little bit too much on 2 sides. So I think it could stand to be 4 sides. There seems to be a bit of a delay in these pressings. Like we saw a bunch of them come out early in the year, and then it's been kind of stalled a little bit. Certainly from the Genesis stuff. Abacab is supposed to be out there. Talk about the price real quick. Here in Canada, this is $60 ish. It's hard to find, by the way. So usually it's 60 plus shipping. When you do so that works out to be about $45 American. And I think it works out to being what, like maybe 50 or 60 pounds? 50? No, maybe not that much. You let me know what it costs in your country. It's very expensive, right? And so if you look at the Lamb, which is 4 discs, for us, that was $120. And there's about maybe 99, 80 to 90 American. So you have to be kind of picky and choosy with what you buy. And Selling England was an album I thought could really stand to be spread out over 2 discs, and that is so beautiful. I love every song, and I really wanted to hear it. Dropping the Needle, of course, when you spend so much money, you're like, I'm expecting to hear a huge difference. And I did. I think I did. Now, was it a placebo? I don't know, but I felt like I could hear more detail. I felt like it felt wider and deeper. You know what I mean? Like almost like spatial audio, but it just felt there was more space, more things moving around. But here's the confusing thing is that we know these aren't remixes. They didn't take the actual stems, the actual individual tracks, and make some changes in the way that Nick Davis, I think, did back in 2007. So this is basically just the masters, the stereo masters, whatever they were working off of, and remastering it from that standpoint. Now, did they keep everything analog? I would imagine Analog Productions kept everything analog and didn't use any digital plugins, but I could be wrong. Maybe they snuck some things in there. I don't know. But there's a lot of like modern day analog outboard gear, especially from like SSL and some other great mastering companies that can really give you the ability to create space and to widen a mix and to add some depth and maybe even adjust some of the attack and sustain. It certainly feels like that for me. I mean, honestly, I will show you some clips where it feels like the reverb in Peter's voice is reduced somehow, or that his dry signal is brought more to the front. You'll hear it, I'm sure. Is this the definitive version? I think it's the definitive version because of how beautiful it is. It's so heavy. It's tip-on. It's gloss cover. It's double disc, which I think this album needed to be double disc. And of course, it sounds fantastic. And it's a little bit louder than the original mix, in my opinion. So I do think this is the definitive version out there. I do think that you should have, here's what I think. I think you should have your favorite Genesis or Phil Collins records in this version. So if that's all of the records, well, then good luck. You're going to spend a couple $1,000s and you'll be missing some in your collection. But I think for the records that you really, truly love and you want a really good version of in your collection, whether that's the Lamb, Foxtrot, or if it's Selling England, or maybe it's Abacab or Face Value, then I think it's worthwhile for you to get. I still would love to get those Phil Collins ones. If they turn up, I will grab one. But enough of me talking. I want to play some clips. Let's dive in. Okay, let's start with the opening few 10, 15 seconds of the album with the a cappella and just a little bit of keyboards here.
Can you tell me where my country lies? Said the unicorn to his true love's eyes. It lies with me, cried the Queen of Maybe. For her merchandise he traded in his prize. Can you tell me where my country lies? Said the unicorn to his true love's eyes. It lies with me, cried the Queen of Maybe. For her merchandise he traded in his prize. Can you tell me where my country lies? Said the unicorn to his true love's eyes. It lies with me, cried the Queen of Maybe. For her merchandise he traded in his prize.
One of the things I've noticed is that there is like a distance to some of the other mixes, but this most recent master from Acoustic Sounds is the vocals are a lot drier. They're more in your face. They're pushed closer in the mix. Again, I'm not claiming that this is a different mix, but just to me, it sounds more close up than some of the other mixes. He sounds a little further back. Tell me if you hear that.
Can you tell me where my country lies? Can you tell me where my country lies? Can you tell me where my country lies?
I don't know what they would have done, but it just feels like a little bit more there. One of the things I'm noticing already, so the first version is the Acoustic Sounds, the second version is the 75th anniversary Rhino issue on clear vinyl, and then the original. There is, you'll hear this on other versions, there is a distinct hyped sound to the second version I'm sending you, which I believe is I personally believe is the Nick Davis remixes, because they're brighter and they're beefier. Listen.
Bench, I can always hear them talk.
There's always been Ethel. Jacob, wake up, we got a tiny room now.
Bench, I can always hear them talk.
There's always been Ethel. Jacob, wake up, we got a tiny room now. And then Mr. Lewis.
Bench, I can always hear them talk.
There's always been Ethel. Jacob, wake up, we got a tiny room now.
So obviously the original mix is darker. Is that because the record is dirty maybe, or older? Potentially. It doesn't look that way. But yeah, it is a little bit muddier. But the new Acoustic Sounds 45 is a little bit darker. It's not as bright. So that middle version, rewind and listen to that middle version where the drums kick in. I know what I like. The second version is this clear vinyl, and it is super hyped, is it not? It's crystal clear. No pun intended. It is just the bass is present, but the high mids and the highs are just sparkly. That's what makes me, there's no way that's the original mix. That makes me think that it is the 2016 mix. It sounds the 2007 remix by Nick Davis. It sounds a lot like Spotify. Okay, the next thing I want to show you is probably the biggest thing, and it's a small song, More Fool Me, but it's probably one of the biggest reasons why I needed to get Selling by the Pound on 2 discs. It's because they try to push too much information on each side of a single disc. And that causes distortion when Phil sings loud on More Fool Me. So listen to the first clip I'm going to play you is the new 45 where there's no distortion. And then you're going to hear the 75th anniversary clear vinyl, and then you're going to hear the original pressing.
Except when things weren't going your way. And then the lady would say that she'd had enough. Except when things weren't going your way. And then the lady would would say that she'd had enough. One
Let me really highlight that for you. I'm just going to play you the except and listen to the. There's a strong distorted presence on all but the first one.
except.
That always bothered me. And it, you know what? It's on some Phil Collins records too. It's even on some of the reissues, I think, where they had to like push a lot of, I can't remember the exact spot, but that happens quite a bit. It's one of the reasons why they used to say that they would put a ballad at the end of each side as it gets closer to the center. There's less space for the grooves and distortion is bound to happen. And so we just don't get that on the new version, which is great. And finally, one of my favorite parts of the album is when the drums kick in on Cinema Show. Let's take a listen.
Armed with his chocolate surprise. Take a little trip back with Father Tiresias. Armed with his chocolate surprise. Take a little trip back with Father Tiresias. Armed with his chocolate surprise. Take a little trip back with Father Tiresias.
There's obviously a crystal clear sound on that clear vinyl record. The middle version, which I believe is the remixes, although none of us really truly know for sure. I don't think that the information just isn't out there and it's not in the liner notes. It sounds like that version is mixed today. It sounds like it's a recording that would have been done today because everything is very crisp. What I noticed in these clips, and you can go back and rewind, but what I've noticed in these clips is like the original pressing is kind of muddy and a little dull. The 75th anniversary clear vinyl, Start Your Ear Off Right from Rhino, is super bright and hyped, like it's scooped a little bit, which is okay. And this new Acoustic Sounds 45 double disc, to me, is like a hybrid. It's like, it's tightened up the low ends. It's brought a little bit more clarity, certainly more depth in the sound, yet it's not like super hyped like this other mix. So it's a little bit more authentic. It's a little bit more true to the original kind of dark mix of the 70s. So, you know, that's just, to me, that's really interesting. It's a very, like, I think a lot of you are going, is it worth it? Especially some people who, you know, who this record is expensive when you add shipping and taxes and everything and import fees, depending where you're getting it from. So if you're like me and you paid close to like $80 for this after shipping and everything, or maybe even more, I can't remember. That's when you're probably like, do I hear a difference? Is there enough difference? Am I just happy with the pressing from 2012 in the box set or whenever that was, or this 2023 Rhino pressing, or just whatever, you know, $10, $20 pressing you get from the thrift store? And then maybe if I want a louder, more vibrant version, I use the CD version or the version on Spotify. I think when you listen to these samples, you might be like, I don't know if $100 per record, especially if you don't have a great setup. Like I really could stand to upgrade my stylus and a couple of other things and maybe treat my room a little bit better, although it's my living room. So my wife won't allow me to put like bass traps around the corners. I think if you don't have like an immaculate setup, you may not get to appreciate the record in full. However, I will just say the packaging to me is worth the price because it's tip-on. The spine is so thick and it's just substantial. And this record deserves to be substantial. For me, like I mentioned, I'd be looking for the two Phil Collins ones. And I think the other one I'm going to get, this might surprise some folks, I think I'm going to buy the Shapes record. I don't have a new pressing of Shapes, meaning like I don't have one from the 2007 Nick Davis mixes. I have just kind of an original $10 copy from a record store, you know, a used version. I think I would like that record. I don't know. I just think it would be cool. Mama, I think would sound really cool. Silver Rainbow could sound really cool. I think the Racism and Illegal Alien would come out with a little bit more clarity, you know? Just kidding. Relax. Oh, for anybody who's interested, some people mention in the comments, they're always like, hey, do you listen to other music other than Phil and Genesis? The answer to that question is usually no. However, one of my favorite records of all time is a record called When I Look in Your Eyes from Diana Krall. That was released on Verve. And Atlantic Records is doing that record on double disc as part of this series. Again, it's going to cost me $60 or $70, but I think I will get that record as well. Also part of this series. I didn't mention that, in addition to maybe Shapes and Face Value and Hello, I Must Be Going. I want to talk about real quick. Like, obviously we heard in the sound comparisons, we heard that this was a little bit muddy, the original, which is fine. And again, it could just be time in this pressing or whatever. And muddy's not a bad thing. I tend to like my records to be a little warmer sounding than bright sounding, but I really want to talk about this Rhino pressing because, as you heard, it is super hyped. It is like lots of bright high end, very punchy lows. The mid ranges are tamed except for when you get to the end of the sides. But for a single disc, and the clear seems to be really cool. I mean, it looks awesome. Personally, and I've seen some people talk online that this is the original mixes. I really don't believe it is. I believe it's the 2007 mixes from Nick Davis. I'm very confident in that. The question too is like, was this taken from Nick's? Was this remastered from Nick's mix? I don't think so. That's doesn't seem to be the point. They seem to be going back as far as possible. But this record to me actually kind of came out as like a little bit of a winner here. And yeah, I'm just kind of intrigued by that. And I know that like Atlantic was doing a little bit more of those 75th anniversary start your ear off right. Like they did Duke on white, they did Trick of the Tail on orange. I have those ones. Correct me if I'm wrong. Did they do any others? I feel like there is a pressing of And Then There Were Three out there that's just coming out now. I think it dropped in the summer of 2024, and it is on blue vinyl, like baby blue vinyl. Am I right? Or is it clear vinyl? I think it's And Then There Were Three on baby blue vinyl is somewhere out there. Correct me if I'm wrong. Now, a lot of people in the comments are going to want to talk about the new pressings that they're releasing that seemingly have no advantage at all. The artwork is the same. There's no bonus tracks. They're single discs, not spread across multiple discs, of all of the Genesis records from Trespass all the way to Calling All Stations. And they're on black vinyl. There really is no clarity as to if they are original mixes remastered, if they've been remastered at all, or if they're the exact same pressings that came in the box sets from the Nick Davis reissues in 2007. So we don't know. And I don't really understand the point of it, because to me, it wasn't hard to get a new copy of any of the Genesis records, with the exception of maybe Calling All Stations. But like, if you wanted a new copy of Duke or Trespass even, or Abacab, like they were easy to find on Amazon, in record stores. Like, I don't know why they're like bragging about this new pressing. Like, it's great. It's great that they're always going to be making new Genesis records, so that I think everyone, personally, I think all of you Genesis fans should have, same with Phil, should have like a brand new pressing like this one, or like this really nice one, as well as like a thrift store copy, one of the originals. And so that's what I have. I mean, I have a great copy of a mint condition copy of the first pressing of Face Value, and then of course I have the 2016 remastered version. So I don't know. I like having lots of copies. I'm weird like that. Anyway, anybody out there picked up a copy of the 75th anniversary Audiophiles Atlantic Records version of Selling England by the Pound? Let me know. Let me know in the comments what you thought about the audio samples. And let me know if you're going to pick up one of these. If they drop the rest of them, Trick of the Tail would be a really interesting one to get. Could sound really, really beautiful. Abacab could sound really, really beautiful, especially spread over 2 discs. I think I'll be tempted to buy anything that I ever see in a record store. I probably would grab. But when you buy it online, it's shipping and stuff, whatever. Thanks for watching. Thanks to our Patreons as well.